Hello and welcome to the For the People podcast, an in-depth reflection of the strides that have been made on the long road towards equality. We explore where the road is leading and best steps towards that destination. For the People is hosted by a collective of clergy activists, community organizers, and affiliates who are leading the charge for change. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you for listening. In Ghana, West Africa, there's a principle called Sankofa, and it simply means go back and get it. The idea being that as we move forward, we gain wisdom through the learnings of our past. And we're all also familiar with the phrase, hindsight is 2020. And in this first season of the For the People podcast, we will look back at the unprecedented year that 2020 was, especially for Black folks and people of color. With that in mind, we'll revisit timely conversations from Live Free's Mask for the People campaign, which was an amazing campaign launched due to the pandemic, but ultimately it became so much more. Through conversations past and present, we'll look at where the needle is moved and also ways to keep up the momentum to keep the needle moving forward even more than it already has. Ultimately, this is our safe place to just go there. We go there on all things faith, culture, and social justice. At times, we'll laugh till we cry, and other times we'll just laugh to keep from crying. But we're always going to tell the truth, always going to be authentic, always going to keep it 100. In today's episode of For the People, we revisit a conversation with Elizabeth Warren, where she advocates for an essential workers' Bill of Rights. As we all know, the pandemic brought out all sorts of underlying issues that were at play well before COVID-19 ever hit, and workers' rights was no exception. So with all that said, let's take a moment and listen to the conversation between Pastor Michael McBride, Elizabeth Warren, and Kamau Bell.
We are excited to welcome the senator from Massachusetts, the former candidate for the Democratic nomination for the President of the United States, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's here, and we're going to bring her on right now because we want to appreciate her and her time, but we wanted to have a special edition with the senator and to get an opportunity to talk with her about this very, very important piece of legislation that we think resonates very deeply with what we're doing. And so there she is.
Hello, Pastor Mike.
Hey, good to see you, Senator. One more time. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
Hello.
You know Kamau Bell?
Hello.
Well, it's great for you to be here with us, and I just want to appreciate all of the leadership that you have done and been doing. You were some of our most favorite candidate, one of our favorite candidates, if not the favorite candidate for many of us. And so thank you for the way your campaign moved the country on a host of things. But you're still in the fight. And so we wanted you to come on and talk to us just a little bit about the Essential Workers Bill of Rights. This is a super important part of what we think resonates with our Mask for the People campaign, particularly because we've been trying to make sure that essential workers have what they need as they are serving the country. You've thought of a policy solution to a humanitarian effort, so we feel like charity plus policy equals transformation. Tell us a little bit about this legislation and what moved you to start this policy campaign.
Right. So here we are in the middle of a crisis, and it turns out that the essential workers in this country are not the investment bankers. The essential workers in the middle of a healthcare crisis where people are getting sick and people are dying, and we're all told to stay home if we can as the only single way we've got to try to flatten the curve, as they talk about. Fewer people get sick, save more lives. The only way that works is if some people still show up to work. Mm-hmm. And those people obviously are doctors and are nurses. We get that. But it's so much more. It's the people who are cleaning those hospitals. It's the people who are stocking the grocery store shelves and cleaning the grocery stores. It's the people who are driving the trucks to keep the food coming to the grocery stores. It's the people who are making the deliveries. It's the people who are still going out into people's homes to take care of the elderly and to take care of the sick, the home health care workers. All those folks are on the front lines, putting their own lives at risk in order for the rest of us to be able to stay home, to be able to stay safe, so that we can try as a people to survive this. So first we say thank you. We're calling them heroes. I think that's great. But by golly, it's not enough that they just do this because they have good hearts. Right. We owe them two things. The first one is we owe them full medical protection. That means the masks, the gowns, absolutely. If they're going to get out there and put their lives on the line, then we need to make sure that they are fully protected and that their employers are providing those masks and providing those gowns at no cost to them. So that was the very first part of it that got this started for me. When I started hearing about people who are making minimum wage or even less, and by golly, these are people who are going online to try to find the masks for themselves. They're going to you and saying, can you help us out here? And let's understand, mostly these are women. They are people of color. They are low-wage workers, and they're the ones who are keeping our country running and our healthcare system operational. So I figured, we need a federal law to make sure that everybody who's out there who's an essential worker has got full protective equipment they need and that they're not paying a penny for it. So that's what got me started. And then I thought, it's not enough just to do the healthcare part of this, although that's absolutely important. It's also the economic part of this. If somebody is going to go put their lives on the line to stock grocery shelves, then by golly, it's not just a living wage they need hazardous duty pay. That's what our soldiers get when they go into combat. When somebody's going into that grocery store at a time when it's dangerous and they're told to show up for work, then they ought to get hazardous duty pay. And
what makes you feel like this is something we're still having to argue for in 2020? Like, you would think in a pandemic we would be able to get consensus on just a baseline, not just for essential workers, but just for our whole country. Do you feel like there's just a missing compassion, empathy gene in our politics, in our policies? What do you think's going on?
I don't get this. I mean, these are human beings who are helping other human beings. And all we're saying here is let's just give them a helping hand when they do that. Let's just make sure they got some basic dignity and some basic protection. I don't know what's happened to politics that it's like folks go into the United States Senate or somewhere in this administration, and it's almost like they have their humanity removed. We got to remember, Democrat, Republican, you're still a human being.
That's right.
And you got to be willing to step up for other human beings.
Yes.
That's what it means.
Senator Warren, what do you think the chances are of getting a bill like that passed right now? What is the plan?
Well, you're the plan.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Man,
all right.
People's the plan.
One more thing. Okay. Let me write that down. One more thing to do. I'll tell my wife.
Tell her you're the plan. But I really do mean that. Come on. If essential workers can't get a basic bill of rights today, what are they? Essential workers.
Everybody say that in your living room.
That's right.
Essential workers.
In fact, we've got a hashtag for it. Stand with essential workers. All one word.
Oh, that's real good. Everybody take out your phone right now. Hashtag stand with essential workers. Yes. That's it. Yes.
Because now is the moment to do this. Now is the moment to recognize the importance of these workers and the basic humanity of making certain that they have both the medical protection they need, but also the economic protection they need. And here's my thinking on this. we get this together and we do this now, then we really go to the basic idea. This is what all workers need. This is what's right for all our workers. And that's why I'm counting on Pastor Mike to lead us on this. This is what is right. Walter, you in on this?
Sure, I'm in on it.
All right. That sounded like a old school Baptist church altar call. You got drafted, you know.
I just do what Pastor Mike and my wife tell me. So and my wife told me to tell you hello. So hello.
Oh, good. Give her my best.
Oh, and while we're on that, Pastor Jeff Brown told us to tell you hello too out of Boston, and Pastor Tracy Blackman. All of these great fans you have. I'm curious. You know, one of the things you did, as you were rolling this out, also is you and I think. Congresswoman Presley asked for some racial data as well to make sure, right? Oh, and can you just talk a little bit about how you got to that point?
Oh, in fact, that started even before this. So when the pandemic is first starting, and we're trying to figure out where is it, and there aren't enough tests, and everybody's struggling to find them, what I noticed is that they're only collecting 2 pieces of information from everybody they test. They're asking your age because they think it might be relevant to who's getting it and, are enough people being tested. And they're asking what your gender is. Okay. Are men and women affected differently? And I thought about this and I thought, wait a minute. We all know that there are huge health disparities by race, that African Americans are more likely to have diabetes, more likely to have asthma, less likely to get access to the full range of medical care. So I started to wonder, what's happening on race? Are we sure that African Americans and others, Latinx or anyone else, Asian Americans, are they getting tested at the same rate? And if they are getting tested, what are the outcomes? Are they getting treatment at the same rate? Are they surviving at the same rate? So I talked to Congresswoman Presley. Ayanna and I've worked together for, 10 years now. I talked to Ayanna and I said, we
got to get her on here, Kamau.
Oh, you do. She's the one.
Yeah.
And so Ayanna and I went back and forth and we said, it's time to start calling for this. It's time to introduce legislation, but it's also time to call out this administration on it. And so, man, we took to the airwaves over this. And the most recent bill that came through, it's got it.
Yeah.
So now all of the testing has to include not only the first 2 things, it's got to include race and ethnicity. And of course, look, now we know what's happened. It turns out that this virus has been hitting harder in communities of color. The death rates have been higher in city after city. And here's how I see this. You can't fix what you can't see. That's why these data are so important. We got to know what's happening to African Americans, because if we don't know, then the higher death rates will never be something we address. Maybe we get to study it historically, but I don't want to study this historically.
Right.
I want to study it right now. So
right now.
See what's happening, and we start to make change and save lives today. So
I love that. You can't fix what you can't see, and you are helping to amplify so much of this. We got to let you go because we know you got another probably interview or policy to write before you go to bed tonight. But just real quick, the Essential Workers Bill of Rights. Yes. I just love to just put this in your ear. Across the country, many of our gun violence prevention interrupters are being deemed essential workers by their public health departments, meaning they're going out into the communities every day, continuing to interrupt violence. So
they are essential.
They are essential. So we want to, part of our Mask for the People campaign is to make sure we're amplifying our gun violence prevention practitioners, our interrupters, our public health folks, because they are part of our essential workers as well. As you head on out the door, maybe you can just say one more quick word, how people can support the Essential Workers Bill of Rights, and just the 3 or 4 things that you think people would love about this on your way out the door. Tell us one more time.
Okay. # stand with essential workers. Use it. And boys, send a text or an email or a phone call to your person in Congress and to your two senators, regardless of who they are. Democrat or Republican, do it anyway because it helps put wind in our sails. Second thing, what you need to know about this bill, it's basic medical protection for people. It's the protective gear, the masks and the gowns. It's hazardous duty pay, which is really, really important. It's child care, so these folks can get out there and actually be able to go to work, and it's protection for all of their labor rights. So they'll have protection as whistleblowers. They have a right to unionize. Now's the time.
Yes.
They have a right to have their collective bargaining agreements respected. This is ultimately about respect for the workers who are literally saving our lives right now. So
thank you, Senator.
Essential workers.
Yes, thank you, Senator Warren, for coming on our Mass for the People special edition weekly show. We love you so much. We're going to let you go. Big shout out to you. You really, really blessed us. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you. Love you both.
All right.
Well, I'm really grateful that we got a chance to look back at that conversation. And it was an amazing conversation. So thankful for Elizabeth Warren, Pastor Mike McBride, and Kamau Bell for having that conversation. And what we always want to do with the For the People podcast, again, as we said in the beginning, we want to take a look back at the past and see how the needle is moving forward now, presently. And this is such a relevant conversation in so many ways for what's happening today. Elizabeth Warren mentioned she was introducing an Essential Workers Bill of Rights, and she introduced that in April of 2020. And I want to give you some updates as to some things that have moved forward since she introduced that bill. The Department of Labor implemented an emergency temporary standard to extend better protections to workers. There was a Federal Workers Leave Fairness Act that was put forward in the Senate to restore leave lost by federal employees during the pandemic. And just recently, President Joe Biden signed off on a $40 billion relief package. Now, there's still currently a debate going on about the minimum wage. Minimum wage hasn't increased since 2009, while we know that the cost of living continues to increase every year. And as it is with masks and pandemics and anything else you can name that affects society as a whole, the bitter consequences of a lack of vigilance tends to roll down to the most marginalized communities, which we all know is communities of color. Now, Congress is currently split on the increase of the minimum wage. So here's what we're encouraging and asking all of us to do. Keep our eye on the prize. Keep our eyes on what our elected officials are doing. Let's hold them accountable. Let's continue to push for more for our communities, continue to push for better standards, for increase in the wage that they're paid, so that in the event that there are other things that happen in the world, as we know, we live in a world where calamity happens, where we can take better care of those folks that are most in need of our help. So I want to encourage you to go do your own research. I want to encourage you to follow up on this conversation and follow along with what's going on. Let's bring our time together to an end, remembering how we began with the principle of Sankofa, which means to go back and get it. So let's be mindful of that. Let's be mindful of going back and looking at the things that we have demanded in the past and asking ourselves, have our demands been met? Let's keep the pressure on. Let's stay in the fight for the people.